While Louise Dickins is the managing director of Dickins Homes from Home, a short-term let agency based in Edinburgh. She was one of a group of 4 accommodation providers which lodged a judicial review against the policy. I spoke to her just before we came on air and started by asking her about her own business.
I set up my business, Dickins, in Edinburgh 25 years ago. I started off letting homes just for the Edinburgh Festival, and now I look after homes all year round. I rent to local families who are having work done on their homes or have an insurance job. I rent to film companies. I rent to consulates. I rent to blue chip companies. I rent to some people coming on holiday. But there's a rent to students. There's a vast range of people that are using short-term letting, self-catering as I would call it. And it certainly is not restricted to people coming on a stag and hen night and intending on having a party and causing their neighbours issues.
Louise, how will this legislation impact your business? Just expel that out to us.
The real kind of nub of this legislation is about the impact on people. The people that own the flats that I look after are interested in contributing, being economically useful contributors. Quite often they own a flat in Edinburgh that they use for a period of time every year, and I rent it for the rest of the time. One of the issues in Edinburgh is, well, there are unlawful policies all over Scotland, actually. All 32 local authorities were allowed to create their own sets of rules for this, with no oversight from the Scottish Government, which seems rather extraordinary. And they have come up with rules, and several of them are unlawful. The recent judicial review in Edinburgh highlighted the ones in Edinburgh which are unlawful. But there's also, in Edinburgh, we had the first planning control area in Scotland. And that is the real stumbling block for owners, because you need to have some kind of planning, whether it's a planning change of use from residential to commercial or a certificate of lawful use. 98% of those so far in Edinburgh have been rejected by the council. The costs of applying, and they're non-refundable, start at about £3,000 for a one-bedroom flat. There's going to be a judicial review against Edinburgh's planning policy. It's going to happen after the 1st of October. I would have thought that Edinburgh Council needed to suspend their planning control area, knowing that that the essence of it was going to be challenged in the High Court, the Quarter Session, that they should have suspended that whilst until they knew what the results of the court case were, but they haven't done that. So in Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is the worst situation, Glasgow is terrible as well, but Edinburgh is the worst situation. Owners are faced with this absolute rock and a hard place decision, because if they go to make this application, as I've just said, 98% of people have been rejected. So what are the chances of you being the one that gets through? I'm a professional running a professional business, but I'm being treated in the same way as someone who is not a professional and runs a party flat kind of in the old town, renting to people for one night. There are, people all over Scotland that are finding that this legislation applies to them. Somebody who wants to rent out a room in their own home. Because they need the money to pay for their mortgage or whatever. They need to be able to do that. Somebody who wants to do a house swap, that was highlighted yesterday by Andy Whiteman, who was the architect of this whole scheme, saying that there are, bed and breakfasts are caught up in this, and he actually voted against the legislation, even though he was the architect of it. He voted against it because he said they should never include bed and breakfasts. Tommy Shepherd yesterday from the SNP was saying that, people renting out rooms in their own homes should be treated differently, so that events like the Edinburgh Festival aren't impacted. I was reading yesterday about somebody who said, I've been renting out my home for 2 weeks when I go camping in the summer, and I want to be able to continue to do that. But now I need to have a Legionella test, a complicated application form, an EICR, this. And so actually it makes no sense for them to be doing that. And also, 70% of this sector are women. And quite a few women have done this job because it fits around their life. You know, there are single mums who need to be able to look after their kids. There are women who are carers for disabled husbands.
Louise, let me put up a couple of points to you, if you wouldn't mind, kind of counterpoints, if you like. Now, first of all, the Scottish Government has been saying this is necessary, it'll help improve safety for guests. Edinburgh Council itself has said they're committed to ensuring everyone benefits from Edinburgh's thriving visitor economy, but it has to be managed, that's the quotes, and sustainable. And also, I guess this legislation has been delayed once. Have people not had time enough to prepare for this? I realise that's a few points there, but let's take them if you would.
Well, it's been delayed once. They said they were going to look at it again, but there have been highlighted. Can you see how when there are unlawful policies all over Scotland, that the Scottish Government is forcing people under legal duress to apply for schemes that are unlawful and asking them to pay non-refundable application fees? Does that feel reasonable to you?
What about Edinburgh Council saying that obviously they want everyone to benefit from this thriving economy, but it has to be managed? What do you make of that?
Well, what I make of that is last Monday we found the true agenda of Edinburgh when they released their draft proposal for the tourist visitor levy, where in Appendix 2 we read the sentence that Edinburgh has based their financial forecasting on a conservative assumption that there would be an 80% reduction in short-term lets in the city.